People ask us about the property market every day. We're going to cover that. Stay tuned. It's a balanced market, and what does that mean?
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Morning Minutes, episode 485. Myself, Michael Berger, Mark Novak. How is the market? Is it still going up? Is it down? We believe it's closer to that balanced market at the moment. What does that mean from a deal-to-deal basis? Because like people hear rising market, but they don't necessarily know how to act. In a slower market, they don't necessarily know how to act. And it does change the negotiations and the process of a typical sale through there. Like, Mark, go through like in a rising market, which we've had probably up until the last month, and a good indicator is auction rates. We were up 90 to 100% in a lot of areas, and now we're sort of 70 to 80. That's what we're seeing on the ground with open homes. So we've got a pretty good understanding where we're seeing it and the offers on there. Just before you go into how a buyer should act on a balanced market, maybe just show the contrast of how a buyer had to act for the last 6 months to secure a property, and maybe if they're still looking, what they may be able to do now.
And also, it's changing daily. Like now with the lockdowns in New South Wales hitting yesterday, that's definitely going to change the market for sellers and for buyers as well. It makes, even we're getting some legislation in our industry handed down today as a result of yesterday. So it's going to be interesting to see how we conduct our opens, our auctions and stuff like that, how that affects pricing. But look, mate, definitely the balanced market. What's the question again?
So a buyer's process in a rising market like we've had for the last 6 months to a balanced market, like when it's really fast, you got a lot of less time to consider if you want to buy it.
So I wanted to talk about the COVID thing, so got that out of the way. But look, it's I think when you're establishing what's happening in the property market, there's two distinct different markets. There's a buyer's market, which is property values are level, maybe even down. There's not many offers in on a property. There's not many people attending open houses. That's when the ball's in the buyer's court. That's a buyer's market. Now, a seller's market is when the sellers are, it's like playing the lottery, and they're just getting such unbelievable prices in the marketplace, and it's just too good to be true. And people are just like going, can you believe that price? Can you believe this price? Can you believe that? That's the seller's market.
I think on a technical, just before we get into balance market, just on a technical term, in the buyer market, you can get long cooling off periods. You can get, before you have to go on conditional, you can get a building and pest done. You can get a strata report done. You can check your finances approved. You can almost dot every I and cross every T before you go on conditional, because you're not the only buyer. In the rising market, it's like 10% deposit down now, go on conditional, and don't worry about your building and pest. Wow, you offered that, it was accepted. Now someone else has offered more, that was accepted. Now you're offering more, that was accepted. Like, that's a technical people may be able to relate to. So what does it mean now?
In a buyer's market, a seller's market, whatever it is in, there's actually a lot of anxiety attached to it for buyers, because as a buyer, when you're buying in a buyer's market, you're not competing with anyone. You're like, but you know what you're thinking in the back of your head? Am I going to buy this? And is the price going to go down further?
Yeah.
That's what you think in a buyer's market. In a seller's market, you're thinking, shit. Oh my God, as a buyer, you're thinking, if I don't buy this now, I'm going to be paying $50,000 more for it next month. I've got to buy. Don't worry about the building inspection. Don't worry about anything. So, they're the two distinct markets that we're always floating between.
they're both emotional roller coaster, because on the other one you're worried if it goes down, the other one you may miss out on a few, and you're like, I've just spent thousands on lawyers and buildings, shit, and it goes up. Yeah, they're both pretty
families telling you, I can't believe, in both markets, families saying, I can't believe you paid that for the property. In a buyer's market, the people say, I can't believe you pay that high. And in a seller's market, they go, I can't believe you paid that either. But, what's consistent is over a very long period, irrelevant to whether you're in a buyer's market or a seller's market at the time, property value in 10 years generally will double. So that's always the way things should go.
So what about now? Balance market. At a new level, we're not disputing that, but balance.
It's a balanced market now, guys. So what do you reckon? I've been talking a lot. What do you reckon?
Yeah, so this is where, from a buyer's point of view, you've got to categorize the property you're looking at. Because in a balanced market, some properties will pop, just like a rising market. And they're going to be typically the ones you love, but more your unicorn properties that are unique. So if you're looking at 2-bedroom apartments and then you've got your average 2-bedroom will be balanced, pretty cruisy, maybe 1-2 offer makers, and you can sort of take your time and be less stressed and confident with the price. You're not worried about it going up or down. You're like, it is what I paid for it. But then you look at this 2-bedroom with a view and a huge balcony and maybe a double lockup, and that could go like a rising market where you've got to act like it. So I think for a buyer, you really need to be honest with yourself and go, are you buying a typical property or are you looking for a unicorn? A unicorn will still pop in a balanced market just as much as it would in probably a rising market. But the difference is the average properties are average in a balance, and in a rising market, they still pop as well. So
we get the language right. Just so if you've just tuned in, so what we're talking about is where we are in the marketplace at the moment. And I want to get the language right. A buyer's market, a seller's market, and a balanced market. They're the three markets. Now, you've just referred to a rising market. A rising market would be property values going up. That would be good for the seller. That's a seller. That's a seller's market, right? So, where property values going down, that would be a buyer's market, or level. That would be a buyer's market. So there's distinctly, if you're ever trying to talk about when we as salespeople talk about internally in our offices, talk about where the market is, we always distinguish it's a buyer's market, or it's a seller's market, or it's a balanced market. It's never all three.
But sometimes sellers, so just to chat in there, when you said a balanced market is a buyer's market, we do find a lot of it's just as much a seller's market, because most people, when they sell, they're buying. And the biggest issue we've had now is people don't know if they should buy or sell first. If they sell first, by the time they find something to buy, can they even buy what they want for what they sold for? So I think a balanced market, yes, it does. You lose a little bit of that potential pop, but you may be a lot more happier on the purchase on the other side of it. So look holistically on the deal. If you're someone who's selling and moving in with the kids, then yeah, that would suck, because you're not worried about buying again. But 90% of people are buying again.
Well, the first 4 months of this year were violent. And the first 4 months of this year was a seller's market. But for the seller, they shit themselves so much that they stopped putting their properties on the market, because they were like, man, this is great that I'm going to get a capital price, an incredible price for my place, but what the hell am I going to get? What am I going to buy? I'm not going to be able to buy in this crazy market. So what actually happened when it got towards the sort of April sort of market, people just stopped putting their property on the market for sale, because they're like, this is just silly. I'm not going to be able to buy. So it really made that market very aggressive. So, and then it sort of all pulled back quite a lot, the market. Stock came on.
Yeah, it's a sore swing, isn't it? Lots of ups and downs, balancing. It's interesting, but yeah. Anything else? I think I sort of covered it. Did you want to add anything else to it? How long do you think a balanced market could last? Where do you how long? We'll both say what we think.
I like a balanced market. It's more natural. It's not crazy. Lisa Novak says lots of vendors requesting long or reducible settlements. You can't request shit when it's a seller's market. The market's running too fast on you, and it's almost like if you're asking the seller for terms as a buyer, the seller's going, "Why the hell am I going to do terms for you? I've got 9 people interested in the property. What am I going to do terms for you for?" But in a balanced market, you're going to get some negotiation there. You're going to get people leaning over a little bit for you, doing a long settlement, doing a reducible settlement and stuff like that. And Michelle reckons that it's the same out there in Forbes.
That's a good point. Between the seller market, buyer market, who can negotiate the terms? And the typical terms are smaller deposits, longer settlements, especially depending how the banks are. Sometimes I know a couple of years ago when banks were really tough. Well, they're tough now. They're easy now, but they're tough because they're so busy. It takes a lot of time. So that's interesting.
Luke's saying pay listing price. Sometimes it's true. I think in a seller's market, you're definitely paying a listing price or more. In a buyer's market, you're often chipping way under and getting it. But it's just. I guess look, the market's consistently changing. It's always changing. We don't want it to be a buyer's market all the time because that means property values won't go up. We don't want it, but at the same time, you know what I always explain to people, Burge. People go, "Oh, mate, you must be so happy. You must be killing it in real estate." What you've got to remember is in real estate, it's not the values of property aren't as important as the volumes of property. So when it's, for instance, it's a violent, crazy, pumping marketplace, but you don't have a lot of properties to sell, I would rather a shit marketplace where I'm selling a lot of properties.
Yeah, because good agents are better in a tough market. Because in a seller's market, every agent looks like a porn star. So when vendors look out, they go, "He got to go price, he got to go price, she got to go." Like it doesn't really matter. There's less prestige on that negotiation. In a down market, it's hard to get a deal together. A good agent stands out a lot more for actually getting the deals together. All markets are different and tough. Obviously, we love quick sales because it's such an emotional journey for that owner. And we've seen the pain when they're on the market for 6, 8, 12 weeks in those tough markets. Like a lot of time they're selling due to death, divorce, and it really holds. It can be quite battling. So on the emotional side of things you and the personal side, you obviously love the rising market because people are in and out. It's never an overnight decision to sell. So,
Before we sign out, I just want to mention something about buyer's agents. We've got a great buyer's agent, Luke Moroney, online at the moment. He said, I like sellers. I like a seller's market, being a buyer's agent. Now, I do have to say, in those first 3 or 4 months of this year, I did see buyer's agent, the use of a buyer's agent absolutely explode because buyers were just finding it so hard. And I find that buyer's agents feed off the fear of loss. And there was a lot of fear of loss going on in the first 3 months. So I found that there was good use and a lot of use of buyer's agents. Boy, there's a lot of our buyer's agents around at the moment. So that segment of the market must have really grown a lot in the last year.
Yeah, which is good. And at the end of the day, if they all add the service, those clients are more likely to go back to them and use them, and it becomes more familiar. Especially Northern Beaches, we've never seen a lot. So we're more talking from our experience locally, because there's always been a pretty sort of, even when it's bad, it's not that bad. And yeah, but if you're looking to buy in Monavale with 40% growth, you would have wanted someone on your side hunting around for you.
Yeah, that's right. And and I know you mentioned it last time to Luke, but Luke, that's a serious topic for us to talk about. Let's get Luke on to talk about using buyer's agents, the buyer agent explosion.
Yeah, maybe Saturday morning, Luke, or if we can do it next week, just let us know. Just message me, send me a text. Let me know if you want to do this next Monday. That's all good.
It's a balanced market, kids. In summary, that's what it is. Now you know what to call it. It's not a buyer's market at the moment. It's not a seller's market at the moment. It's beautifully right. Pendulum's beautifully
Maybe
sitting in the middle.
it's market.
Hey!
Okay, all good. Thanks, everyone.
See you, everyone. Take care.
Bye.